Honey, I shrunk the Mavs. The Mavs have no bigs, and let's play a little game of ranking Mavs misery over the years. Coming up on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Amazing.
Your team every day.
Still can't eat milk.
You are Locked On the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Isaac. I'm one of your co-hosts. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen of the day. Go listen to Locked On NBA, your second listen of the day. If you don't want to hear about the Lakers and Luka, pick another show on the network. Listen to Locked On Pistons with Koo, great host over there. If you're a true Mavs fan, you already signed up for our Locked On Mavs Insider program. This is where we text you all the latest news and reports. And I want to say we send out positive reports, but if you've been subscribed to this our program over the past week, then you're like, well, this kind of sucks because I'm just getting all negative crap. That's past 7 days in Mavs land. So yeah, but make sure you sign up for that. We do Q&As and stuff. I'm actually going to do a Q&A on Wednesday, depending on when you listen to this. So you can sign up to that through the QR code on your screen. And you all know we have a free newsletter, an email every day to your inbox. It's free. And yeah, you get all the latest Mavs news and this podcast. Speaking of this podcast, what a time. What a time in Mavs land. You know, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about this past 7 days of being a Mavs fan. And I'm like, has there been a worse 7 days as a Mavs fan? And honestly, at first it was like, no brainer, right? Like, yeah, there's nothing that's going to match this. So then I was like, oh, well, this is a fun memory lane stroll here down the Yellow Brick Road. Let's look at all the times that we have been miserable and start making the list. I'm like, does every franchise have a list like this? Because it feels like we've had a lot of times. Or it could just be me being skeptical. I'm going to talk about that in the second and third segments. The first thing I want to talk about is this situation with the bigs for the Mavs. So word came out earlier today on Tuesday. I'm recording this at 9 p.m. on Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Central Time. And earlier today, word came out that Daniel Gafford has a right knee sprain. He's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. It puts us past the All-Star break a little bit there. And he was kind of the only Mavs big left, unless you want to count Kylie Kelly. He's a two-way guy, more of a G League player. But yes, Daniel Gafford now out at least the next 2 weeks, maybe longer if he's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks. We're still waiting word on Anthony Davis. He's definitely going to be out the next 2 weeks and longer probably. No timetable I've heard for Dwight Powell yet with the hip strain. And of course, Derek Lively's been out with the stress fracture to his foot. And I mean, out at least another month. I mean, just throwing that out there. So the Mavericks have no bigs. All right. So once Gafford went down the other night, it's like, all right, cool. Kessler Edwards, your time to play the 5. Have fun against Valanciunas down there. Max. PJ has obviously missed a few games here with the sprained ankle. So what's their next move? Like, what does Dallas even do at the big man spot? Here's a couple different things. I want to go through a couple different options here. One, thank God for the All-Star break, because that's coming up. Yeah, it's coming up very soon this weekend. So they get a break, and then next week, you know, you don't get a game until next Friday. So if there's a time for you to all be hurt, I guess it's over this time instead of it being games. Is it Kyler Kelly's time? No. I mean, sure, throw him out there. He's taller than anybody else we have. So throw him out there. I don't know. The question that I think a lot of people are asking right now is, hey, can we just sign somebody? What if somebody's bought out? What if someone's waived? What if someone's just a free agent sitting out there? You know, Salah Mejri's in Dallas. He's like, hey, I can still run. You know, throw me out there. here's the issue with that scenario. So if you go back to this past summer, Dallas in their transactions and their moves they made hard capped them at the first apron. So right now they are approximately 171,000. Some different sites say 175 or 178, somewhere in the 170 as far as $1,000 under the first apron. So obviously, if you spend that or spend more than that, you can't because you're hard capped at that first apron number. Well, the problem is to sign a vet minimum player right now, it is more than $171,000. Okay. So Dallas just straight up can't sign someone to a vet minimum, contract, especially if they've been in, the league a little bit longer and all the different stuff. So you're like, Isaac, are we kind of like screwed? Like, can we sign anyone at all the rest of the season? Well, glad you asked. If you wait until the end of March, so basically you got to look at the calendar. So if you sign someone for the rest of the season, obviously it's the amount of days that they're on the roster. Well, as the season goes along, that number for the minimum contract gets lower, obviously, because it's the days that you're working is getting, lower. For instance, you look at like Alex Lynn. Bobby Marks is great at it. Actually, exchanged some messages with him before I talked about this because I wanted to make sure, hey, like, am I getting this right? We are hard capped. We can't sign anyone. And, he tweeted out about Alex Lynn. He's like, the difference between Alex Lynn signing with the Lakers on a Tuesday compared to like a Wednesday, just like a day later, you're talking like $20,000 or something like that. It was like 700 something thousand down, down 20,000 away today. So if you do that math, it takes you to the very end of March in which Dallas gets signed a player to be eligible to play in the playoffs. But if it's here's the other problem. If there's a good player out there, let's say there is a decent center out there that's on a roster. Typically, they're expiring contracts, and they're looking at Dallas saying, "Hey, I would like to go play with Kyrie and them, and give them another body down there, get some minutes, and all that." Well, they have to be bought out before March 1st in order to be eligible for the playoffs. So basically, it's like, hey, just make sure you're waived by March 1st and then stay in shape for the next month because we really can't sign you until March 31st, in which your minimum contract will be under that $171,000 mark. What an ideal situation, right? No, it sucks. And that was the last thing I said to Bobby Marks. I was like, great times in Dallas right now. He's like, yeah, not good. It's like, yeah, yes. This is where we're at. Just smile through it right now. So what's the realistic option? It looks like we're about to get some small ball. All right. And hope Dwight Powell can come back. Hope Gafford can come back right after that 2-week mark. Because it doesn't feel like we're seeing Lively or AD anytime soon. So we're probably over these next 2 weeks looking at Kessler Edwards. We're looking at Omax. We're looking at Kyler Kelly. Looking at PJ Washington. If he comes back soon, I think he's questionable for the Golden State game on Wednesday. Yeah, this is where we're at, guys. This is where we're at. So maybe they're going to pick up the tempo. Maybe we're going to shoot a ton of threes. What else can we do with the small ball lineup? Just hope that we don't, rebounds matter. So we got to figure out how to rebound the ball and crash the boards. But, maybe after the game, we can ask Jason Kidd some questions in his post-game press conference. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back. And let's rank the Mavs' misery over the years. This doesn't sound it's definitely times to look back on that sucks, but it's also like, all right, let's see how bad this moment sucks compared to some other times in history. Coming up next. This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Wayfair. I need to put up this lower third here for Wayfair so we can all see this after the holiday hustle. There's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine. I need to do that again right now in my garage. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give space a new look to start the new year, Wayfair has everything you need, all within your budget. I'm currently looking at some storage options for my garage and stuff. And you know what? On Wayfair, my favorite part, the free and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items. Wayfair site was so easy to navigate, and I found everything I needed in no time. There's something for every style, every home, no matter your space and budget. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Gotta love these transitions, baby.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Insert transition music now. All right, here we are. Let's talk about this Mavs misery. As I was talking about in the first segment at the very beginning, I was reflecting on the bad times in franchise history over this past week because obviously things sucked, and it felt like every single day something else new came out that made it suck even more. And it's like, oh, okay, this really sucks. There's no way it can get worse. Oh, cool. Somebody said something. Cool. Our franchise guy, Dirk Nowitzki, is in LA at the Lakers game to support the generational star that we traded away. Yeah, cool. Just great moments. Yeah, just yeah, cool, bro. Fun times. So I was like, all right, where does this rank? And I started making this list of when have we been misery? I mean, when have we been misery? When have we been miserable? And guys, is it bad that it is bad that I came up with so many different examples? So I want to go through all the different honorable mentions. And then as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, the third segment is kind of a two stretches that are going head to head in the finals. So let's just start kind of, if we want to say at the beginning. Now, obviously I have a list of things. I try to do a little bit more research too. I'm going to miss something that some of you are going to be screaming at me in the comments. People screaming at me online. No way. But let's just start at the beginning. So if you go back to the 80s, Mavericks, obviously started the franchise in the 80s. I think the first moment that really stung for Mavs fans, and some of you were watching on YouTube or listening in your car, and dude, I remember this time. They play the Lakers in the early 80s in the Western Conference Finals. They lose to the Lakers. Now, I'm not putting that high up the list. Obviously, I was not even born for that. But you're a brand new franchise. It sucked at the time, but compared to all the other stuff, I'm not going to put that too far up the list. What about the 90s in general? Yeah, I'm lumping 10 years together here. The 90s, they never made the playoffs in the entire 90s outside of 1990. They never made the playoffs, and they went through 6 different head coaches. Talking about walking through the wilderness. I think it's like a collective misery over a span of 10 years, but it's kind of like, I want to imagine who's the fan base that's been walking through that right now. I don't know. I don't even know who you would compare it to right now. It's just 10 years worth of, all right, we suck again. Let's keep on going. I literally just wrote down Roy Tarpley's name. Just how the excitement at the beginning and how it ended. If you want to know more about that story and the potential that Tarpley had, just Google, go down, read some stories about Tarpley. But I wanted to throw him in there as far as misery for Mavs fans, super bummed of, man, I thought he was going to be something long term and something really good, and unfortunately some off the court stuff derailed that. Next on the list, trading Jason Kidd. Oh, wait, do we have a young good player and then we traded him? Yes, we did. Have we ever done that before? So Jason Kidd, we trade Jason Kidd. He's obviously in Dallas when he's super young. They decided to ship him off to Phoenix. This is a trade that brings Michael Finley back to Dallas, to Dallas. So trading Kidd, I even tweeted out, and I put out there, I was like, hey, is this the most miserable time, this current time? And different people replied back with trading Jason Kidd. And I found that interesting of just if you were a Mavs fan then, just how pissed you were when they traded away this young guy and Jason Kidd to Phoenix. And obviously you get Michael Finley and stuff, but still. And then you see Kidd and the career he has. And obviously he comes back to Dallas at the tail end of his career and helps the Mavs win a title in 2011. But let's keep on going through history. And some of these history things might be out of order, but I just want to keep going. Losing Steve Nash for nothing. I mean, this is one of those things that was constantly talked about. Mark Cuban said it was the biggest mistake he made, and in owning the Mavericks. You have this young Steve Nash. You trade for him. He was on Phoenix, not to get confused here. You trade for him. You get bring him in Dallas. He gets to play with Dirk a little bit. And then you have this opportunity to lock in Steve Nash. There had been some injuries, but you have this opportunity to lock in this young Steve Nash, and then bam, he walks for nothing. And then Steve Nash is, just the back-to-back MVP after led the league in assist and all the stuff. And you just kind of had to just watch his career kind of like losing Brunson. After that, let's just keep going a little bit here. 2003, the Dirk injury against the Spurs in the playoffs. There's different playoff series that you could throw in there as far as man, I was miserable when this moment happened in playoffs or we got eliminated. But this was one of them for me, one of the early ones for me of, it's man, we were supposed to beat the Spurs. And people don't bring this up a lot as far as heartbreak in the playoffs. But when Dirk got hurt in 2003, it was just such a bummer because I was so confident that they were going to beat the Spurs in that series. They ended up losing. And it was as a young Mavs fan, you're like, oh, man, this sucks. I thought we were going to go further. But it's kind of like that type of feeling. 2006, pissed, angry, felt cheated, miserable. The NBA Finals, they go play the Miami Heat. Dwayne Wade shoots, I don't know, 432,000 free throws over the course of the finals. I actually asked Dwayne Wade about that since I've been covering the Mavs, which was a funny story. If you're an OG Locked On Mavs listener, then I've told that story multiple times about asking Dwayne Wade when he was still playing about that finals and how many free throws he shot. And fast forward, he wasn't too happy about it. Neither was LeBron, as I sat in his seat in the locker room and asked Wade that. 2006 finals loss was a super low moment because obviously we were so excited for Dirk to make it to the finals, to prove people wrong. And 2006 happens. They lose in the finals. You're like, man, this is a big, big bummer. I'm going to skip 2007 for a second because, spoiler alert, that's coming up in the third segment. Let me just keep on going and speed through some of these. The title breakup of the roster. Obviously, they win it in 2011, the highest point of the Mavericks franchise history. You break up the title roster, and then you make the Lamar Odom trade. Kind of a disaster. Research that Odom trade. Can I lump together missing out on big free agents post-title? And you just lump all of the names together from the Dwight Howards to the world to the other big names that you're like, they were linked to Dallas. Oh, we have a shot. We're chasing the big fish, playing powder that we heard. Literally, it felt like forever. And we're going to get this big name next to Dirk. And then bam, we didn't, or we got used as leverage. That was like a collection of misery over time. Then keep going. The Rondo debacle, trading for Rajon Rondo. You had the best offense in the league, but they thought it had a ceiling on it. And they're like, man, if we just trade for Rondo, we think that gives us a better shot at the title. They trade for Rondo. Shocking. Rondo and Rick Carlisle clash, connect four, research that story. And it was a mess. Rondo quits on the team. In the playoffs, they lose and all the stuff. And see you later. Yeah, Rondo, you can not have your Mavs jersey. The DeAndre Jordan hostage situation, guys, that was a moment in which everybody was dunking on Mavs and Mavs fans, and you felt an eerily similar feeling over the past week. You're like, oh, this takes me back to DeAndre days, but the DeAndre days doesn't even touch this past. Sorry, doesn't even touch this past week. it's just funny looking back on it because it's like, dude, this sucks when that was happening. And the door and the Blake Griffin and all the tweets and all the stuff. And he backs out on the deal in Dallas. And you're like, all right, this really sucks right now. And then last two here before we get to the final segment, losing Jalen Brunson for nothing. Man, we've covered that so many different times. And that's probably going to haunt them more over the next, 5 to 8 years. And then losing in the 2024 finals, which, you play this historic Boston team. Anytime you can make it to the finals is a big deal. But obviously when you lose the finals, Dallas has made it to 3 finals. They've won one of them. And anytime you make a list like this of heartbreak and misery as a Mavs fan, you got to put when you lose an NBA finals on it. So I put 2024 finals loss. I probably missed something in there because the third segment is the showdown between the current past week in Dallas Mavericks misery fandom of how bad this past week sucked. And I'm going to walk through some of that stuff versus 2007. And it honestly happened within the same like kind of time frame, which is fascinating as I researched the days and the misery heartbreak over that. Let's talk about that epic duel in misery coming up. This is get excited. Let's be miserable together. Coming up after this. This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Open Phone. Open Phone, running a small business means you're wearing a lot of hats. I love my hats. Your personal phone becomes your business phone. And before you know it, you're juggling customer calls all day, all night. As your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number. That's where Open Phone comes in. It's the #1 business phone system designed to help you keep your work and your personal life separate. For just $15 a month, the cost of a few coffees. Ooh, it's like 2 coffees, kind of. You get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening within your business phone number. Open Phone works through an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also AI-powered call transcripts and summaries. So you have a rundown of your calls and action items the second you hang up. And if you miss a call, no problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring that you never miss an opportunity to engage. Right now, Open Phone is offering 20% off the first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA for 20% off 6 months. Openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. If you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. There you go.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right. Let's do it. Let's compare this past week to 2007. Let's talk about 2007 first, because I feel like there's a lot of Mavs fans that, especially if you're a newer Mavs fan, you're like, there's no way anything can compare to the misery over the past week. And honestly, spoiler alert, I agree. I think this past week sucked so bad that it's the worst moment, worst everything in franchise history, more than this 2007 moment. But I don't want us to gloss over how heartbreaking and miserable 2007 was. The Mavs win 67 games. All right. This is after the finals loss 2006. They come back. You're like, man, we are going to make a statement. We are going to, not a Patrick Dumont statement, but then it actually became like a Dumont statement when you lose. But we're going to come back. We're going to be a better team, motivated. We lost in the finals. They did that. 2007 happens, 67 games. Josh Howard elevates to be like an all-star level player. And then you go into the playoffs. You're the #1 seed. Dirk had this incredible regular season. Is he going to be named MVP? And then you lose in the first round as the #1 seed to the We Believe Warriors, the 8th seed. Guys, the last game in that series, game 6, Dallas loses that. Golden State wins the series. That was on May 3rd. And 7 days later, on May 10th, ESPN reports that Dirk Nowitzki is going to win his first MVP award. And talking about the laughingstock of the whole sports world. One, they're the laughingstock because they're a 1 seed. They won 67 games, and everybody's making fun of Dirk and like, oh, he chokes. Look at this. And he choked again, and they lost to the 8th seed. And then, oh, what a fraud MVP. Oh my gosh, this is awkward. He's going to accept the MVP, which he's talked about in different interviews about how much that was hard for him. I didn't want to accept the MVP. And here we have the MVP at home accepting, he has the press conference, all this stuff to win, take the MVP. Happy for him. He deserves it. He deserved more MVPs, but he gets his one MVP, and the Mavericks are continuously getting dunked on by everybody. And you're like, man, this sucks. This is when Dirk takes his trip over the offseason to evaluate everything and all the stuff. And you're like, talking about miserable, getting made fun of by everybody. We just choked, like one of the worst chokes, like in playoff history. This sucks. Like that sucked so bad. It was one of the worst feelings, and you just felt so bad for your superstar player. But you know what? A lot of Mavs fans, you're like, loyalty never fades away. We're like, we're in this. We're in this with Dirk. We know they choked, but we love Dirk and all of this. But little did you know that coming up in 2025, that loyalty would not be paid back. Here we are. This past week has been absolutely miserable. Obviously, Luka gets traded in the middle of the night over the weekend, and we're like, is this real? What's going on? Stayed up half the night, like I'm sure many of you guys, most of the night, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And then it's the process in which it happens. It's like, oh, cool. We had a coffee date and decided we're going to, just give up on our 25-year-old generational star. And we're just going to talk to one team. And it was all these different like layers of, not only did you give up on your generational star at 25, but then there's the process that was indefensible in which you went about trading him. And then it's the return you got back, and the fact that you just got played like the Pied Piper of like, oh, hey, man, if this gets out, if we can't talk to Luka about if he would sign in LA, then we can't give you everything we have. And it's like, well, okay, let's just lower the asking price and we'll just take, just throw one pick in there with AD and Max, and let's just call it a day. My coffee's getting cold anyway. I need to reheat it. It's just, you're just playing with the whole fandom of your whole fan base in one of the bigger markets in the NBA. And so the trade happens. And then after that, every day there's something, right? We have the Nico presser in which he starts the whole presser and he starts it off with a joke and laugh. And we're all watching just pissed off. Like, what the heck are you even going to say at this? And he starts off and he doesn't even like get close to meeting the fans where they're at. Then we have the Anthony Davis injury on Saturday. We get one half to be excited, have fun. What a cool moment in the arena and all the stuff. And then after that, we get the new owners who haven't really talked about it yet. Patrick Dumont talks with Brad at the morning news and basically just, shoots shot after shot at Luka and, compares his work ethic and conditioning to Shaq. Because when I think about just the perfect example of conditioning and work ethic and everything, I immediately go to Shaq, who at one point was, anyway. Those comments were just unbelievable. Like, I can't believe that he went on. I was like, did Brad ask him if he was like, Brad's one of the most respected reporters in the Dallas area for, I don't how many years. But I was like, did Brad make sure that he was on record when he said that? You literally have fans losing their minds over this. And and then the cherry on top, the franchise legend, the one that has the highest approval rating of any sports figure in Dallas, Dirk Nowitzki's like, hey, I know it's a random Mavs home game tonight, but I'm gonna fly to LA and see Luka in his debut for the Lakers, and set with Sasha and his dad and LB and stuff. And it's like, oh, and then he's gonna tweet on top of that to make sure that it's not just a random occurrence that he's in LA for like business or anything. No, I want y'all to know that I flew to Los Angeles to see the guy that you traded away. This week has been so bad as a fan. I don't know. I mean, I would need context for all these other fan bases of like when was your misery and heartbreak and all that stuff. I don't know if you can cram in a worse 7 days for a fan base of a sports franchise enough to where there's national podcasts that's happening that's not even about sports. It's about like coverage of events in the world. And it's like, okay, I'm just tired of listening about Mavs heartbreak right now. I'm miserable. Let me just turn on something else. And it's just like some like random like history podcast. And it's like, I'm going to listen to a deep dive on Pearl Harbor. And they start off with like, hey, it was tough in the harbor, but what about it? And it's just like everything I listened to mentions the Mavericks fan base and how bad the Mavericks have screwed up. And it's like, you can't escape it. Right. I went to an event the other night with my wife. It was like a marriage like event. It was like a fun game night type of thing. And I was like, you know what? I don't have the small talk about the Mavericks right now and about Luka and all the different stuff. I'm like sick of talking about it. It's miserable. We sat down at this table. We're playing like, I don't care. Young make fun. We're playing bunco. All right. And I'm like, kind of like, why am I here right now? But you know what? I'm not small talking about the Mavs. We sat down, brand new couple we've never even seen before, introduce ourselves. First thing. So, y'all sports people, what about that Luka trade? I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. Everywhere I go. I mean, there's billboards. There's a 77 on this. I've never seen that 77 before in my life. Cool. It's like 2007 doesn't match it. It was tough in 2007, but nothing beats this past week, man. It's tough. And then we have, obviously the injuries. The guy you get back is hurt. We don't know how long AD is going to be back. And we went from like, hey, Luka's about to come back. Man, if we can just get everybody healthy, to literally everyone dunking on us. The front office and ownership pushing every ounce of fandom away from them. And we're like, all right, how's the Kyler Kelly jerseys going in the hangar? I'm like, how did we get here, man? Like, how did we get here? So anyway, tough times. We're going to keep talking about this Mavericks team because we're Locked On Mavs, and this is what we get paid to do. Every team in the network has a show that covers that team, and ours covers the Dallas Mavericks. And we're going to keep talking about them. And this team does have a great collection of players as far as like good dudes, and Clay and Kyrie and a bunch of these guys, and Omax baby ready for stretch 5. Omax, or can you call him stretch 5 if he doesn't hit a 3? I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the season, but here we are. This is where we're at. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for a lot of the positive stuff about the show over the past week and all that stuff. But we'll be with you every step of the way. Peace out. Boom.